Town of Groton's Zoom business reopening meeting. We're just trying to get this kicked off from technology. So we're going to kind of let it load up for a second as people are just jumping into the call onto the Zoom so everybody can listen and be heard. So just give us 1 minute as we're allowing additional people to kind of log into this Zoom for this short period of time. For those of you that don't know me, my name is John Reiner. I'm the Director of Planning and Development Services, and we have a number of folks from the Office of Planning and Development Services, from the City of Groton, from Ledgelight, and from our Town of Groton Police Department. So just hold on one moment and we'll kick this event off. So thank you. I think we'll just begin. So again, thanks everybody for jumping on. And with us today, we have a number of speakers. We have Steve Mansfield and Katie Baldwin from Ledgelight Health District, Deb Jones from the Office of Planning and Development Services, Paige Bronk from the Office of Planning and Development Services, Mayor Keith Hendrick from the City of Groton, Mayor Patrice Granatowski from the Town of Groton, Town Manager John Burt is also on the call, as well as Carlton Smith from the City of Groton. So we want to go over a number of things with how we, the Town of Groton and the City of Groton, can help businesses open as we move forward with some of the under the state guidelines and guidance. And we'll do our best today to cover some topics. We're going to try to talk for about 20 to 30 minutes and then have a fair amount of time for questions and answers at the end. One thing I want to clearly state up front is we will not get to everything today. We will do our best to cover the main topics, answer people's questions. If people have additional questions, at the end, we'll put up a screen with contact information, phone numbers and emails for all of us on the panel for today, as well as today will be the first event, I think, of multiple of these moving forward. We'll announce sometime in the next few days to a week another one of these types of Zoom calls within the next 2 weeks to cover additional guidance as things come out over the short term. So before we kind of get into the program, I think we wanted to, Patrice, did you want to say a few words?
I did. My camera's blocked by my antivirus software and I can't get it set quickly enough. So good morning, everybody. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to the Reopening Groton Business Webinar. The Town Council and the manager, town staff are very much concerned that the reopening process is done as safely as possible. Our dual goals are to safeguard public health while supporting you in your local business. The town will be working with you to shepherd our business owners through this process. And I wanted to thank the manager, Mr. Burt, Mayor Hedrick, Mr. Mansfield, and all town staff for being here. And you don't really want to hear from me. You want to hear from staff and how they can help you. So I will exit now and wish you well. And please reach out if you need anything from us. Thanks so much. Be well.
Thank you. And I know Mayor Keith Hendrick wanted to say a few words also.
Thank you, John. Yes, good morning. Thank you all for attending this webinar. The City of Groton is dedicated to opening businesses as soon and as safely as possible. This includes supporting the restaurants, hair salons, barbershops, and all other approved businesses. The city and town are also working together on a long-term recovery committee. So if you're interested in being on that committee from the city side, or if you have questions, please send an email to mayor@cityofgroton-ct.gov. And we are here to support, and we want to get businesses back on their feet and back doing what they do best, which is providing services to all of us. And we're here to help. So thank you and stay safe.
Okay, thank you very much. I think at this point in time, we will turn things over to Steve and his team to give an overview of kind of where we are, and then we'll jump into the rest of the program. So thank you, everybody. And Steve, I'll hand it over to you at this point in time. You are still muted, but all right, now you're not. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. Steve Mansfield. I'm Director of Health at Ledgelight Health District. I'm joined by my colleague, Katie Baldwin. Katie heads up our Regulated Establishment Division. I just wanted to give everybody a brief overview of Ledgelight Health District's role in this reopening. As everyone knows, we're responsible for licensing and inspecting food service establishments, cosmetology establishments, and some other entities in Groton and our other 9 municipalities. You're probably also aware that the governor's office has issued pretty specific guidance for reopening cosmetology establishments and food service establishments over the weekend. What we've done with that information is boiled it down to a couple of single-page checkoff lists that we will be distributing to all of our regulated establishments, food service and cosmetology, so they'll know exactly what they need to do. Of course, they should all refer to the governor's guidance documents, as it provides a lot of detail. But the information we will provide you is exactly what Ledgelight Health District staff will be looking for when we come out to take a look at your setup. It's pretty straightforward. It's a bulleted list. But I want to reemphasize the fact that what John mentioned before, what we know to be true now may change. We're aware that the governor is going to be putting out an additional executive order. We thought it was going to be out by this morning. We haven't seen it yet, but that executive order may change some of the things on the checklist. For instance, in cosmetology establishments, as it currently stands, blow drying hair is allowed. But we saw a news report last night, although it hasn't been verified, that the governor's task force has changed their opinion on that. If we receive confirmation that that is changed, of course, we will adopt that into our guidelines. But everyone should recognize this is a work in progress. This is only the first phase of the reopening, and the second phase will obviously mean a lot more changes. So we'll do our best to keep you informed as we move forward and give you all the information that comes out of the governor's reopening task force. As far as what restaurants can do as far as reopening, as everyone's aware, in addition to curbside service, the governor's allowing outdoor seating, outdoor dining. And we're perfectly fine with that. Ledgelight Health District doesn't have any regulations, either at the local level or in the general statutes or in the Connecticut Public Health Code, that prohibits outdoor dining or even regulates it. So if you want to set up dining outdoors, have at it. We're not going to be involved in that process. If you want to cook outside, that is something we have to know about. We have to do site inspections and at least go over what your setup is and make sure it's compliant with the Ledgelight Health District regulations, the Connecticut Public Health Code, and the new governor's mandates. So we'll make sure everyone has that information, and we will be posting this information on our website so it's readily available, and our social media platforms. Again, I want to reiterate, as far as seating, we don't have any jurisdiction over that, and we're not interested in being involved in the approval process for that because we don't have any regulations to back it up. Right now, we're perfectly fine with outdoor cooking because that's allowed under our local regulation and Connecticut Public Health Code. But we have heard, and it hasn't been verified, that the governor's mandate may prohibit outdoor cooking. That's something obviously we don't have any control over, and we've made our position known to the State Health Department that it is allowed under our code, and we're supportive of outdoor setups. So if someone wants to have a pig roast in a parking lot, as long as they can comply with our regulations in the Connecticut Public Health Code, we're okay with it. And of course, our sister agencies have to approve that too, as far as planning and zoning and fire and so forth. But just wanted everybody to be clear that what we know to be true today may change tomorrow, and we'll do our best to keep everybody up to speed on that. I'm not sure, John, if you want to wait for questions till the end or read them off as we go, whatever you like. But we're here to help you, and we'll try to make the the reopening as seamless as possible.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll wait for some questions at the end of this. I think right now, Paige is kind of keeping track of that. If people do have questions, please feel free to type them into the comments section of the meeting so that we can compile those as we're going, and we'll do our best to answer those questions at the end. Before I hand it over to Deb Jones to give a few pointers on where we are from a zoning and process standpoint, I did want to hand things over to John Burke for a minute to also say a few words.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. First, I wanted to concur with the Mayor Granatowski's comments concerning doing everything we can to help you open safely and successfully. I also wanted to mention, same as the city, that we're looking at a long-term recovery committee. And if you're interested in potentially participating, you can email me at jburt@groton-ct.gov. Again, jburt@groton-ct.gov. And then also to mention the town council adopted the tax deferral option to allow affected businesses to apply for a 3-month tax deferral for taxes and government utility payments. You can find that information at groton-ct.gov. So please go there. The deadline for applying is July 1st. So I want to make sure no one misses out on that. Thank you.
Thank you, John. At this point, Katie, I'm not sure, did you have anything else you wanted to weigh in with what Steve said?
No, I think he pretty much covered everything. We have, our staff is ready to respond as people are ready to reopen and may need an inspection, and we're staffed and ready to be there for them.
Okay, great. Thank you. At this point in time, I'll hand things over to Deb Jones, our Assistant Director of Planning and Development Services.
Thanks, John. Morning, everybody. To build on what Steve said, this is a fluid situation, so this is what we know now. We don't have an executive order regarding outdoor patios, but we do have the zoning regulations. For the Town of Groton, outdoor patios are allowed in commercial zones, mixed-use zones, industrial zones. Can approve them administratively. You don't have to go to a commission. We just need an application form and a plan that shows where you want to put your patio and how you're going to protect your patrons from traffic, whether or not you're going to use lights, if you want to put up a tent, that sort of thing goes on the application form. The application fee has been waived. So provided you give us all the information about what you want to do, we should be able to turn around approvals pretty quickly within a day or so. I think that's pretty much it. Feel free to contact me if you've got any particular questions about your site, because every site is different.
All right. Thank you very much, Deb. I did want to hand things over to Carlton to talk a little bit about what the city is doing.
Thank you, John. This is Carlton Smith from the City of Groton Building and Zoning Department. I will tell you first off that we do have a zoning permit application online if you to the city website. There is no cost, just as Deb had just mentioned from her side of that. I am looking for as simple as we can do for the existing buildings, existing businesses here, and a simple GIS map. Where you'd like to put your dining facilities or whatever you'd like to try to do will be more than sufficient for us to get an approval out there. In our regulations, we also have outdoor patio areas in there, but it was also reiterated last night by our Planning and Zoning Commission, who made a motion to support this in every possible way without having to go to the commissions to get this as quickly as possible to the businesses. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Carlton. And I also want to hand things over to Paige Bronk, our Economic and Community Development Manager. He can talk briefly about some of the things that we're trying to do to promote economic development through these hard times for small businesses and large. So Paige, I'll hand things over to you.
Good morning. I wanted to reinforce that our goal as well is to get businesses open safely and as quickly as possible. We've been tracking this situation for weeks. The best mechanism that we have to display the information is through our website. exploremoregroton.com. You'll find if you go to that website, under doing business, there's a drop down that deals with COVID-19 business assistance. I would encourage people to look at that. The first information that we were putting on that website dealt with state and federal financial resources, and we continue to do that. Most recently, though, we've actually been putting much of the information that's distributed by the governor and the state in terms of their guidance. But in addition to that, and maybe more importantly, is the industry best practice information that's coming out. Sources such as the ICSC, the shopping center organization, also retail trades, they're providing complementary best practices information that marries well with the information that the state is providing. The other thing that we had done over the past few weeks is really try to support restaurants and putting on the website what restaurants are open, what are their hours, how are they requesting that their customers deal with them. We really understood the sensitivity with our local businesses, particularly small business. We also issued a survey, and the results, in all honesty, were a little bit frightening, but I think it's important to read some of the information just so that people can understand the severity of the situation. We received about 71 responses to a short survey. 83% of the respondents had less than 10 workers or employees. 49% were currently closed. 92% experienced a loss of sales. 35% were experiencing supply chain disruptions. 73% indicated they needed cash immediately, either through grants or loans. 60% indicated they needed financial management assistance. 58% had taken the PPP federal program funding. 52% took the economic injury disaster loan funding. The last most significant question that we asked them, how long can you remain at the current status before permanently closing? 84% said through May, 61% said through June, 41% said through July, 28% said through August. Obviously, that's a very short window with a center around summer. We clearly understand that small businesses in Groton are on life support at this moment, and the answer is to try to get them open as soon as possible, particularly for the summer. Obviously, that has to be done in a timely manner and safely at the same time. So we're under pressures to get something done, but also follow the best guidance we can get from the state and also industry leads. So again, I would encourage people to follow not only the state, but if we could go to Explore More Groton, we do have industry best practice guidance that should be helpful, and we continue to update that daily. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Paige. The last speaker I wanted to hand things off to, LJ, our Chief of Police. I wasn't sure if there were a few words you wanted to mention. I know you and your team have been out and about trying to help businesses and people just staying safe through all of this.
Not a lot to say, John. I sent you a couple of notes, but our concern is to make sure we enable you guys to do your jobs, whether it's other town staff or the businesses that are opening. But just to be clear, we do get complaints regarding social distancing, masks. I'm sure if we're going to do some outdoor seating, there may be some pedestrian concerns and some traffic concerns. Mystic and Noank are congested on good days, and knowing that we're going to move stuff outside will create some other challenges. We will have officers walking beats and riding bikes in those areas, particularly on the days that are more apt to have large groups in those areas. We don't want to be killjoys. We want to make sure that we allow people to enjoy everything that the businesses have to offer, but we also have to be cognizant of those executive orders. There are enforcement components. We want to make sure that we encourage people to comply with them voluntarily, so we don't have to get into enforcement, but we do get those calls. I'm sure our partners in the city have the same approach to it. But ultimately, it's to make sure that we, obey the rules and laws that are out there, the executive orders, and to keep people safe. That's our major goal. So I'd be happy to answer any questions later.
Okay, I think that was really the end of our speaking portion of this, which gives us a bit of time and platform to answer some questions. So I saw that there are 2 questions that came in regarding salons and one that came in dealing with tents and fire marshals and some of those things. So I think maybe the salon questions, Paige, I don't know if you want to read off those questions, and then there might be opportunities for Steve and Katie to answer those, and then we can kind of jump around from that perspective.
Sure. I'll take those. So the first question we had from a home salon, can you clarify salon capacity in terms of staff and guests?
Hi, this is Steve Mansfield. So I want to clarify, I've been looking at the questions as they come into the Q&A, and of all of the questions, we do have a few answers, but we have posed those specific questions to the Department of Public Health over the weekend and today, and we hope to have more clarification. So what we know to be true now is the capacity of the salon. So if we have a salon that the fire marshal has deemed can hold 50 people, then 25 is the total that can be in that building. Again, that's what we know now. We're waiting on further clarification from DPH, but I think it's safe to assume that for planning purposes for the time being.
Okay, as a follow-up question, again, for hair salons, will hair salons need inspections before opening?
At this time, we're not going to be conducting opening inspections unless, unless we receive complaints. Also, we're pretty sure that the executive order that will be released will detail who will be in charge of enforcement for these new rules for reopening. If the enforcement falls on us, we'll certainly be doing that, but they do not need an inspection to reopen on the 20th from Ledgelight.
And just one quick thing to add on that, everyone should understand that we at Ledgelight Health District continue to do our normal operating inspections. So we will be going out and doing our normal site visits to not only cosmetology, but food service, to enforce the Connecticut Public Health Code and our local regulation. And at that time, we'll be doing an assessment of how they're complying with the governor's orders. At this time, we know that we're not the enforcement agency, but we do have a big role in educating the folks who are charged with adhering to the governor's mandate. So we'll continue to provide that education to our establishments. And if we do run into enforcement problems, we'll refer it to the appropriate agency.
Okay, the next question somewhat relates to something I had mentioned before. We have state guidance, but also we have industry standards as well, and maybe additional code compliance. So the question is, before I make a large investment, I was curious if an open-sided tent is considered outdoor seating. I already have spoken to the fire marshal, and he is researching what his regulations would be. I read the governor's guidelines, and there was no mention of tents. Some backdrop on this, I believe this is a restaurant.
I can take that one, Paige. So yeah, if you're putting a tent outside over an area where people will be eating, then it's outdoor seating. So you'd need an administrative zoning approval, and then you may need a building permit from the building official, as well as a fire marshal inspection.
And from a public health perspective, there's nothing currently in our regulations that would prohibit a tent with or without sides. But that question has been put to DPH because of the interpretation that a sided tent could be construed as a contained eating environment, similar to being inside a restaurant. So that question has been posed, and of course, we'll share that answer when we get it.
I'm going to continue taking these questions in order. This next one has several questions within. How should a business handle a situation if people do not wear masks? Should people wear masks while walking around on sidewalks? Case in point, Mystic. If stores and restaurant staff are not wearing masks, what should patrons do?
I might be able to help out on part of that. The governor's executive order was pretty specific, and I'm sure as far as the restaurants go, that Steve may want to weigh in up. But the guidance is specific, or the executive order is specific. If you can't maintain social distancing, which is deemed to be that 6-foot distance, then people should be wearing masks. I would encourage people that are visiting downtown Mystic, that are out in the public, to wear masks, to comply with that directive, unless there's a change that we see in the upcoming executive orders. We will receive complaints on that. Our officers will attempt to address it. If people are occupying a business and working there, I think, again, I'll defer to Steve, but I think that the guidance is pretty clear that they're going to need to wear them.
I agree with everything Chief Fasaro has said. I'll add that, as I mentioned before, we don't at this point know if the governor is going to change the enforcement entity for people who are not complying. But at this point in time, I think personal responsibility has a lot to do with it. If you're going out to eat and you see an outdoor dining area where people aren't wearing masks, think about your health and the health of your family first and decide if you want to go there. And then secondly, you can always report it to us, the local health department. We'll go out and educate them and tell them what they need to do. We understand also it's difficult to control what large groups of people do. We've seen that on the weekends with the great weather, and we know our restaurants are going to do everything in their power to comply with the governor's mandates. But I think personal responsibility has a lot to do with it. And then if you don't see compliance at a restaurant, whether it be patrons or people who are working there, give us a call and we'll do our best to follow up on it.
Okay, next question. Have there been any updates regarding sanitation in what restaurants can and can't have on tables?
The Reopen Connecticut rules that were released for food service establishments have guidance on cleaning and sanitizing the tables and the chairs after each customer. They have limited the ability to have reusable, say, salt and pepper shakers or ketchup. Everything needs to be single service or, a single service packet or disposable. And silverware needs to be either pre-packaged or rolled up, and your table should not be preset. And again, I think they also mentioned utilizing paper menus or a menu board or having people use their cell phone to view the menu. We want to limit the amount of items that customers are sharing. So as much disposable utensils and equipment as possible, and then cleaning and sanitizing after every patron.
Thank you. The next question isn't 100% clear to me, but I think we can get the general concept. It deals with a restaurant. It's a question regarding capacity and the state's guidance dealing with 50% capacity. So 50% of restaurant capacity is what total relative to both inside and outside? I believe the question is, do you aggregate both indoors and outdoors in calculating your 50%, or is it really just supposed to be based on 50% of your inside?
So for establishments, I'll just pick one at random that I know. S&P Oyster Company in downtown Mystic, I believe their capacity is indoors and outdoors. I'm not sure, perhaps if Fire Marshal could clarify that. But it's a very good question because a lot of our establishments are planning on doing outdoor seating that they've never done before. So there may not already be an established capacity. So for instance, if a place in Groton decides they want to have outdoor seating, we may not know what the normal seating is because it doesn't exist. So that's another question that we've already articulated to the Department of Public Health. And again, we'll share that answer when we get it.
Thank you. Next question is 2 parts. Deals with the restaurant as well. If I want to get new outdoor dining, what is the process after town assistance? The second part, can outdoor dining serve liquor with a license to serve indoors? I'm not sure that that's fully clear, but again, wanted to know about the process maybe after town approval and what would be the limits for serving liquor at the establishment.
I'll jump in. So, I mean, after town approval, clearly you just put up your barriers and tables. And with regards to the liquor permit, I believe the state has a form where you can amend a liquor permit that you already have and be allowed to serve outside. Is that what your understanding is, Steve?
Yeah, so in order to serve liquor outdoor, you need a patio permit from the Department of Consumer Protection, and they've made it clear that that requirement has not been waived. That permit actually needs a sign off from, I believe, the building inspector, the fire official, and the local health department. So I think unfortunately that's a hoop that the Department of Consumer Protection wasn't willing to waive. Kind of a offshoot of that question, we know they can serve liquor outdoors if they have the appropriate DCP permit, but can they actually set up any kind of distribution system? So if there's a microbrewery, for instance, they may want to set up kegs and a table to pour their beers. It's clear that you can't have outdoor bars in the governor's mandate, but it is unclear as to whether or not you can actually set up a distribution system. And we've had that question from a couple of places that want to do beer gardens. From our perspective, with our local regulations, it's okay. It's outdoor. We would consider that an outdoor food preparation area and regulate it accordingly. But we have to wait and see what the governor's office, what their answer is on whether or not that is actually allowed.
Just to add on to what Steve said, sorry, Paige. We do have staff here at the office every day. So we will be here to sign off on those DCP patio permits if necessary, but I would recommend calling first before coming down because our office is close to the public. So we just want to be able to coordinate. If you make a trip down to have a signature, someone will be here.
Thank you. This next one relates to salons again. And Steve, you had started to touch on this. Will there be clarification for salons regarding eye protection and face shields and blow drying soon?
So the first two, and Katie, jump in if I miss something. There hasn't been clarification provided regarding eye protection or face shields yet. We expect that to be forthcoming. And again, Katie, do you have anything else on that? Did I not see something?
No, I think the eye protection was only for when you're using cleaning chemicals, but it's not clear as to what eye protection is exactly, whether it's your glasses or a pair of goggles or the shield. So we don't have that clarification yet.
Yeah, and as far as blow drying, the way the governor's mandate stands now is it's not allowed. But as I mentioned earlier, someone from the governor's office was quoted, I believe it was a Hartford Current article, saying that they were reversing that policy. So keep your eye on the news and our website, and we'll see what that change is.
Great. Next question. How will standards and policies be determined and enforced to protect employees?
They'll be determined by the governor's office. The governor's executive orders are the ones, they supersede all of our local regulations, at least health department regulations. So they're putting in place all of the regulations and mechanisms that they believe will appropriately protect employees and the customers there. Again, enforcement is still up in the air. Right now, all of the governor's mandates are enforceable by the state or local police. And of course, Ledge Light assists all of our municipalities with education. But if you were on the governor's conference call last Friday, he actually did mention that the suspension of regulated establishment licenses may be necessary. I don't know if that was a harbinger of what he's planning to put into his executive order, but I think it's something we should pay attention to. But again, as soon as we get clarification on who exactly will be doing the enforcement, we'll be sure to share that with everyone.
Thank you. Next question, aside from commercial, mixed use, industrial, were there any other areas that were okayed for outdoor usage? I believe commercial type usage.
Those are the only zones where patios, outdoor patios are allowed. So the mixed use districts include downtown Mystic, downtown Groton, the Route 1 corridor, and the Quantic Bridge area. Both industrial zones allow it, the one along Route 117 and down near the airport, and the commercial zones along 184, Route 12, Route 1.
Okay. Okay, Chief, this is for you. Hold on one second. Is there going to be a one-way setup for pedestrians in downtown Mystic on Main Street?
The short answer right now is no. We've got no plans for that. Just as a point of clarification, the streets, most of them in downtown Mystic, the major throughways are all state roads. That's governed by the Department of Transportation. They have been reticent to close down any of those roads in the past. The local traffic authority, which on the Groton side is myself and the town manager, we don't have the authority there. So I guess the short answer is right now, no. And with congestion in downtown Mystic, expected larger groups coming down there as the weather gets better to take part in some of these activities and utilize the businesses down there. I think it would be unwise to close those streets. But there, as I indicated at the beginning, we're concerned about pedestrian traffic blocking those roads with tables and whatnot. So at this point, I don't see that happening. I mean, it's something we could look into, but I think the likelihood of closing down Main Street, West Main, Water Street, any of those is unlikely for any extended period of time. And quite frankly, it would be a pretty significant drain on resources at the town level, having to put up barricades and make sure that people don't go through those roads. And it would create a safety hazard as well. Hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Next question. Do restaurants have to provide bathrooms for outdoor seating?
It's a really good question, and it's one we've asked of DPH. What we speculate will be happening is patrons will be allowed to use the bathrooms, the existing bathrooms that are in the facility. Obviously, they can't dine in the facility, but going into the facility to use the bathrooms, we think that will be allowed. And I think it will be laid out clearly in the governor's mandate. But in your planning at this point in time, I wouldn't recommend purchasing outdoor porta potties and things like that until we get more clarification on that. So you can plan accordingly.
Okay, another salon question. What is suggested as the best sanitizing agent for hard surfaces? Barbicide, or is there another product that might be recommended?
So you want to use a product that meets the EPA's criteria for use against coronavirus or human coronaviruses. Barbicides are best for your implements, so your comb, your scissors, your tweezers, those types of items that are going to come in contact with a person. But for using a disinfectant or a sanitizer on a hard surface, it should have an EPA registered number and have some kind of information on its use against a human coronavirus.
Okay, multi-part question. Chief, this might go to you. Will Mystic limit the number of people on the streets during the summertime, particularly peak times such as 4th of July, Labor Day, and also people coming in and out from out of the state?
You know, the authority to regulate much of that is at the governor's level. However, we will look to ensure that we maintain that social distancing that we're obligated to maintain. I want to go back to another question. I think I need to clarify something. One of the previous questions was about the sidewalks. I think it was about one-way pedestrian traffic. That, in fact, we have looked at in some areas, particularly in the Mystic River Bridge. I've talked to Chief Stewart in Stonington about that. And Stonington officials and Groton officials have discussed the possibility of making one-way traffic there.
This is John Burt. We do have signage up for one way on the bridge now, as well as Public Works just put arrows on the ground to direct people to which side of the bridge they should be at. So that is set.
Next question deals with restaurants, and it is an interesting one. So far we've treated indoor eating versus outdoor eating as an absolute, but maybe it's not always so clear. The question is, for restaurants with large windows that typically are wide open during the summer season, are tables adjacent to the windows deemed to be outdoor seating and available, or indoor seating and not allowed?
So if I'm reading the question correctly, let's just give an example. Say a restaurant in downtown Mystic, there are a few that have open windows. If the tables and chairs are on the sidewalk, it's okay. Tables and chairs are inside the window, it's not okay. That's the short answer.
Deb, I guess I'm going to follow up with my own type of question. We have to be cautious regarding who controls the sidewalks as well from a zoning standpoint. Would you want to take the opportunity and touch on that at this point?
Sure, Paige, thanks. Sure, so along Water Street and West Main Street in Mystic, those are state-owned sidewalks. So if you want to put tables outside on the walks, and many of them are wide enough to accommodate pedestrians and tables, you need permission from the state. On local roads, there may be some sidewalks that are wide enough to accommodate tables and pedestrians, and you'd need to get permission from the Public Works Department.
Thank you. Next question, another salon question. When will we expect to hear from the governor's office regarding salon requirements? Do we have a date and time?
We don't have a specific date and time. We asked that question as soon as on Saturday, as soon as the governor put out the guidelines, and we were told early next week. So it could be any time now. But unfortunately, we're at the mercy of the governor's office to come up with those and distribute those. But as the most accurate information we had was sometime early this week.
Okay, another multi-part question dealing with dental offices. Any further information on dental offices doing non-emergency elective procedures? OSHA advises dentists only to do non-emergency procedures. What about dental hygienists coming back to work? Very conflicting information from OSHA and also the state was the comment.
So from a public health perspective, there are a lot of situations that are very similar to this. We have to rely on what the governor's orders say, and we refer to them whenever we get questions. The most recent governor's order is what the mandate is. I wouldn't rely on OSHA to determine when people can go back to work. If the governor's office says that physicians' offices or dentist offices can go back to work or go back to work under a limited scenario or something like that. But the best thing to do is just go to ct.gov and look at the most recent guidance documents. We haven't heard anything about an executive order coming out that would change the current mandates.
I believe we've addressed all of the questions that have been posed. I did want to take the liberty in commenting to some degree. The state guidance will only take us so far, and I believe there's some language in the state guidance that is specific to having the businesses actually try to figure some of this out with some best practices. So the guidance from the state isn't intended to be the same as a business plan on how you adapt. The businesses are going to have to take some of their own creativity in using the state guidance and trying to make things work. And thankfully, we have a little bit of time in which to plan before May 20th. But I don't know that we're always going to have all of the answers from the guidance. Some of the answers have to come from the businesses themselves and the industry best practices. I do have one other question that came in, two parts, so I guess I'll proceed with that. Number one, Steve, I believe this is for you. Did you say the governor could potentially ban outdoor cooking? And the second question, we have an abundance of signage requesting social distancing, currently not allowing on-site food consumption. How can we enforce patrons wearing masks while waiting for food pickup and balancing the good Samaritans who may complain that customers are not complying?
So to answer the first part of the question, yes, I did say that the governor could potentially ban outdoor cooking. We've heard rumors of that, but at this point in time, I would continue to plan. If you want to do outdoor cooking, put those procedures in place. We haven't seen anything formal or informal from the governor's office that would ban that. But again, we always have to use that caveat. We get surprised sometimes as well. Frequently, we read in the newspaper or in an email what the mandates are. At the same time, the general public and the people who run our regulated establishments do. So at this point in time, there is no prohibition on outdoor cooking. And from a public health perspective, we're perfectly fine with that. Just let us know what you plan on doing and we'll walk you through the process. Number two is a really good question and I think an impossible question to answer 100% accurately. It is a balance, like the person wrote in the question. If you have, say, an ice cream shop and people are lining up outside and they're not adhering to social distancing, say you put down 6-foot markers on the ground and people are just piling up. I think there's a balance between telling them what they need to do and refusing them service or reporting them to the authorities. I think it's going to fall in most cases on the establishment to make the decision about how to best enforce the mandates of the governor. And of course, we recognize that control over large groups of people, especially in the summertime when they're lining up, is a very difficult thing to do tactfully. And again, we'll do our best. If you want to call us, we can come down and be the tough guys, if you will, with the badges and so forth, and let people know what the requirements are and encourage them to follow the rules. We're happy to assist as best we can.
I'll try to finish up that response as well. Even pre-COVID, businesses have a tough job managing their businesses and dealing with the public. And this situation, in some ways, is very similar to having a patron who may not follow the normal rules that are expected within a business. If someone were to come in and be disruptive or bother the existing patrons, or we're not following other rules that were required by the business owner or the operator, I believe that the business owner has the right to address that with the patron. I believe that this would be the same situation, probably a soft approach in advising. This has to occur these days. It's part of the state mandate require that they comply. If they do that, of course, relates to a different nature. Possibly they would be out of the premises. Moving on to another question. We've had a few come in. We've got a couple minutes left. This is a tough one. It's a theoretical one. If we do see more cases of the virus, will we have to close again?
Again, that's a call for the governor's office. Local health entities will not be making the decision on a statewide basis whether or not further restrictions will be put in place or will revert to other restrictions. Those decisions come out of the governor's office.
Chief, did you have a comment you would like to make regarding masks?
Yeah, in the written questions, I answered one of them, but just for the business owners, there is a mechanism to request PPE. The state has set up a 4-tiered system for requesting personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, gowns, things like that. Businesses are the 4th tier, the first being healthcare providers. Then it goes down to long-term care facilities and the first responders and other municipal agencies. But the 4th tier of that allows business owners to request PPE that the state is receiving. To do that, I've posted on the answered questions the mechanism to get that. There's a requesting format available at the ct.gov website. What happens is you put in a request. I can tell you your whole request probably won't be fulfilled. We're seeing that with first responders when we put in requests and we get a small percentage of that, but you can request it. When the order is fulfilled, we, the police department, the emergency management function, will be notified. We will pick it up from the stockpile that's located elsewhere in Connecticut. We retrieve it, we bring it back here and notify you where you can come here and get it. So that is available. Again, I don't want to give people false hope that they can just order whatever they want and they'll get it, but there is a mechanism for businesses to order that. I know one of the restaurant owners had a question about the PPE, so I thought it would be important to note that. And getting back just to comment on your last question, just like you had said, if there's an incident that happens with a person at a business that you refuse service, we can be contacted under any circumstances. And if they refuse to leave, you call the police department, we come there, we notify them that they have to leave, that they're no longer welcome. We put them on notice that further, if they come there again in the future, that they could be issued a summons for trespassing or arrested for trespassing. That mechanism existed pre-COVID. It exists now, and there's additional enforcement measures that we can take under the governor's executive orders. But I think the advice you gave, Paige, was very sound.
I'm going to take one more question. That's the last on the list. What if a patron says that they have a health issue to not wear a mask? What is the proper course of action?
From a public health perspective, I'll take that one. We've gotten a lot of calls about that, and the governor's executive order makes it very clear that if someone has a health condition that prohibits them from wearing a mask, they don't have to wear a mask, and that they're not required to provide that information to any entity. So if a restaurant owner asks someone to wear a mask and they say, I can't because of a medical condition, that's pretty much it. What should you do at that point? I would say encouraging the social distancing and making sure that you're at least 6 feet from all other patrons. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this back over to John Reiner just to have some closing words. Before that, though, I do want to reiterate that the town, Groton as a whole, we have the exploremoregroton.com website. Again, there's a doing business drop down. Within that, we have the COVID-19 business resource page. We continue to populate that and revise it daily. I would encourage people to go to that site to look for information. And of course, if there are any questions, any of us are willing to help in getting your businesses opened in a timely manner, but also done safely for everybody. John Reiner, did you want to comment to wrap things up?
I'm sorry, Paige. John, before you jump in, I just want to provide just a little clarification very quickly. There was a question earlier about dental offices. While we're on this call, I got a notification. I haven't seen this myself, but it has at least been reported in the media that some dentist offices may be able to reopen on the 20th. It's not something Ledgelight regulates or inspects, but we'll do some more research into that. But I would, again, encourage everyone to go to the ct.gov website and review the latest recommendations from the governor's office. Thanks, John. Sorry to interrupt.
No problem at all, Steve. I just wanted to thank not only all the panelists, but all the business owners in town that have jumped on, participated. We want to hear more from you. So up on the screen now, if you can see it, is a contact list for everyone that spoke on the call today, from the town, from the city, from Ledgelight. So if people have questions, please reach out to us. Look at Ledgelight's website, look at the City of Groton's website, Town of Groton, as well as the exploremoregroton.com economic development website that has a lot of resources for small businesses. Again, we try to do our best to answer all the questions with the available data that we currently have now. I expect us to do another one of these calls within 2 weeks. Every few days, things are changing. I mean, just as Steve mentioned, just in the time he was on this call, getting additional information and notification. So as new information becomes available, all these organizations will keep working together in the partnership that we have been. But keep your eyes and ears open for Facebook, Explore More, and other posts, as well as Ledgelight helping to push out some information for our next update on this type of information. So I want to thank everybody for participating. To all the businesses in town, good luck. And if you need any assistance or guidance, please again reach out to us. And thank you and have a great day.